Hi, I'm Chris Romain, and I'd like to introduce you to my model of Killybegs. Killybegs is a small fishing village on the coast of County Donegal. I've always been interested in narrow gauge railways, and in the 70s I became aware of the County Donegal Railway, and it was some years later, after modelling in O gauge, that I actually got across to Ireland, where I was very intrigued with it. I got very heavily involved with the project to restore part of the line out there, and indeed I became a chairman at one stage out there. Now, the Killybegs unfortunately only had 4 trains a day, and it's hard to realise in this day and age just how isolated it was, and the railway was the sole means of getting in and out for most people, although today, now with the much better roads and everybody having motor cars, it's a different world altogether. So here's the layout. I've got a mixture of rail cars and freight locos, as well as one or two of the quirky bits of stock, one or two of which never actually reached Killybegs, having been based at the other end of the line 50 odd miles away. During my numerous visits, I became fascinated with the village of Killybegs, and was alarmed on my first visit to realise that all traces of the railway had been totally obliterated. So there was absolutely no chance of ever seeing a railway again at Killybegs. Having modelled in O gauge, I decided that I would move on to this layout to try and recreate a faithful record in model form of how Killybegs looked in the 1950s before the line closed. On my numerous visits over there, I was able to measure and photograph the buildings, acquire large-scale ordnance survey maps for me to do this, and with the aid of my computer, everything was drawn out on computer. The baseboards, the track, the rolling stock, the buildings and so on, the backboard. Everything is hand built, though I acquired rails and wheels and the like for the stock, but the rest is all hand built from scratch. The locos are mostly of etched brass, as are the rail cars, whereas the freight stock has etched chassis with plasticard bodies. The buildings are mostly of foam board with a Das clay finish to replicate the stonework, and the roofs are also covered with laser cut grey self-adhesive card to look a little bit like slate. The signal arms and the finials were also etched as well. Layout is operated by DCC with sound equipment to the rail cars and the steam locos. I don't think anybody remembers what the sound of the steam locos were, so I've cheated and used decoders for standard British Rail Class 4 tanks, whilst the sound decoders for the rail cars are in fact based on the American Rio Grande galloping geese. The only thing about those that's not accurate, of course, is the ringing bell, which is a requirement of American trains. I don't use DCC for the point operation. I use slow motion point motors, and that's because I can't be bothered with the faff of putting in a code every time I want to change a pair of points. The layout tends to work pretty well, but the gremlins do get in. From the layout that you see here, the line goes outside of this shed, which is about 8 meters by 3 meters wide, goes right round an apple tree and comes back in the other side to a small fiddle yard. I'd like to think that I can sit in my chair and watch the trains come and go from Killybegs just as I would have done had I been able to visit the line in 1958.